what should I say? So, the first time we did this scene, I just kind of was like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter what you pick. Right? Because I'm like, oh yeah, you pick one of the options, then it immediately cuts in, so it doesn't really matter. It's just there for funsies. Except, as far as I'm aware of, I mean, I'm testing this right now. I'm kind of just doing this on the fly here. Because I'm doing like a big batch of just like all the things I've missed up until like the end of Disc 1, which as it turns out was a lot of little things, especially in Dolly, because of course I did, because Dolly's jam-packed full of this crap, but this is one I wasn't even aware of, and I probably noticed this at some point or another, but like, actually, in fact, I'm going to test this here too, because I'm going to pick the same dialogue option both times. I'm just going to mash through this and see what happens. But basically, when Dagger leaves, right, she goes like, thanks, I had fun to the little shop girl here. But, I think, by the way, I just noticed she's sitting on a book to be higher in the sea, which is kind of cute. But, I think how Shop Girl here responds depends on the option you pick in the FMV, even though it doesn't matter. Because I picked the second one this time, and now Dagger's like, thanks, I had fun. Bye! So that's a different one. I think that's a different one than we got during the thing. I think the first time we got here, she was like, usually she'll go like, she's an odd one. Which is like, how do I, there you go, I reset. So now I'm gonna go through this again, but I'm gonna pick the first one again. Or, well, first one this time, and we're gonna see how that acts. So I guess I'll cut to that. But, actually, I guess I can just talk about other stuff while we're loading this up. So, I'm doing like a big batch of stuff. I'm showing off like you can whack the Pluto Knights during the little fight you have with them, and like if you whack them but don't kill them, one of them reacts. I forget which one it is. I forget what his name is. It's the bottom one. He'll be like, Captain, we gotta get out of here, which I forgot about, because I didn't show it off. I'm from the country. But yeah, I forgot about that, so I'm showing that off. There's books you can read, which I didn't even know about. I honestly didn't know about this. When you're running around a Steiner, in the library, each of the libraries, there's a book you can actually read. That one of them will talk about the ice cavern, and one of them will talk about Dolly. There's not that much to it. It's just like a tiny little like paragraph basically. But it's kind of funny that you get like those are even there. Like I'm shocked those are there, because I, honest to God, did not know about them until I literally, how I found out about them? I watched someone play the game, and they just happened to come across one of the books, and I was like, what? And that made me even go check the other one and realize there was another one there too. It was like, wow, that's cool. I also showed off Quena. I forgot that you can deny recruiting Quena, and unlike with other stuff, this isn't like a thou must sort of situation, right? If you say no to Quena, you get like different dialogue both from Quena and Quail, and then like Quena actually like doesn't get recruited. Quena, goes back to hang out in the marsh, and you can just go talk to her later to recruit them. She was a strange one. Yeah, see? You get a different dialogue option here if you pick the top one versus the bottom one. Like, I did not know that. What the hell, man? I freaking blah 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 blah. Freaking man, the things I learn about this freaking game. Hey there, everyone. My name is Buck Shut Off My Guys of the Games, and we're kind of back with some more Final Fantasy 9, but not any like tangible gameplay, I guess. I'll probably just like how am I gonna put this? Basically, since we're at the end of Disc 1, and there's things I didn't really get to talk about that were during Disc 1. So basically, I'm just gonna do like a big, like almost like, I guess, like mini podcast, but I shouldn't really call it that. I'm just gonna talk about stuff that either we missed because it just didn't pop up, or I just didn't have time, or even I just forgot like an idiot, or I just legitimately didn't know about, or other things like that. And also, but mainly it's gonna be like, that would be for the most part in like later ones, but like on Disc 1 it's like there's a lot that I can't really talk about because it'd be big spoilers. So from here we're basically just gonna talk about things about the game that I liked that I didn't really get to bring up and all that jazz. And we'll talk about a couple plot things. We'll talk about one big thing that I surprised I didn't bring up when it happened, but I digress. I don't know what this is gonna go for. I'll probably just record me playing a bunch of cards because that seems like a fun way to spend my time. Yeah, so I basically have like a list here. You're not gonna see it though because I'm not actually recording. So, basically, thing that I'm gonna talk about number one is Moogles. Moogles are in this game, right? And they're very important actually. Like I feel like that's like a thing that not really any recent like 6 had a recruitable Moogle, which is cool, and they're actually important. Like 6 actually has a bunch of weird stuff because like all the recruitable party members have placeholder Moogle versions of them, which is kind of a funny thing with that game. But other than that, it's like even in the older Final Fantasy games, like if Moogles tend to feel like they're just kind of like there. Well, that's not true, but that's not really true at all, actually. But especially as of reason, like 7 has like one doll Moogle, right? You have the Robo Kate Sith Moogle doll, whatever. I don't even know what you'd call it. 8 has like, does 8 even have Moogles? 8 has like the Roombas, which are kind of like their own thing, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But I feel like I mean, they're not really plot relevant yet, I guess. But it's cool that Moogles are like super important in the game, right? They're whatchamacallit, they're your save points, right? They're like a whole like side quest associated with, right? The Mognet stuff. Like we've talked to a bunch of them. Like it's not just like, oh, they're to like like we have like actual like talking with them, like back in Evil Forest, right? The one gave us the flute, and also like Vivi hung out with Stiltskin a little bit and stuff like that. Like it's Stiltskin especially. Like Stiltskin's a big one because he's like a reoccurring one. He got his own like design and stuff. He like sells you stuff. Like it's cool, And I guess that's all I have to say about that. It's not really that much, I guess, but I mean, let's see. Bullet point 2: active time events. This is a big one. I really didn't bring this up, but I love active time events. This is like maybe one of my favorite systems from this game. Like the fact that like in practice it's basically just cutaways, but like it's like I don't know. It's the fact that like first of all it's cutaways that you can control, right? Like you walk into a new town, right? You get a bunch of ATEs available to you, but you don't have to watch them, right? Which is if you're playing the game for the millionth time, whatever, that's probably pretty nice. It's optional, but even excluding the optional part, it's great because it's just like you get a little like it's like, oh, you see the AT and it's something like Vivi confused, so you immediately know, okay, this is giving me something about Vivi being confused, and then like you get to watch a little cutscene with Vivi, and it keeps you like, it's almost, sorry about that, I got interrupted there. So it's like you're watching ATEs, and it's like it's so cool that you get these cutaways that are just like, because it feels like in like previous games, right? Especially like if you get a cutaway, it's usually like it'll be a story thing, right? Or something like that. It usually maybe you'll get 1 or 2, but it's like 9 has so many. Like there's like if you played the Steam version, for example, right? The Steam version has an achievement for this, and like getting the achievement isn't even easy because so many ATEs are. This is a big thing too. ATEs are. We haven't really seen this yet, but ATEs can be like linked to other ATEs, right? So like sometimes you'll like obviously like you can like in Dolly, for example, it's like you got Dagger tries and then Dagger tries harder. But in the future we'll get ATEs where it's like if you watch one, you can't watch the other. So you get replay value out of that because it's like on a different playthrough, right? You can see different ATEs, and we'll get ATEs in the future that like can actually like do stuff for you, like, which is really cool. It's like it's rewarding you for engaging in the optional stuff, which is a big thing this game is so good at doing. Like it is like pretty much any time. Like I guess this is going into another bullet point that's way down the list, but I might as well do it now because this segues perfectly into this. This game really rewards exploring, like exploration, engaging, all that stuff. Like anytime you're doing anything in this game, if you go out of your way to do something, you're like 99 times out of 100 you're gonna get something out of it. Like it is so good at doing that. And we'll see later, like even some crazy things, like you can do a whole bunch of backtracking at a certain point and you'll get something out of it just because why not. And it's so fun that the game is so eager to reward you for doing things, and I really love that. Like I don't know, like in previous Final Fantasy games, obviously it's not like, you know, you get nothing out of it. Like you get like you always get stuff, but it's like this game really tries to give you stuff for doing anything and everything that you can think of, and it especially feels like a really big like I don't know, like how do I put this? Like it's like almost like if the game before this was 8. And that game basically doesn't reward you for exploring at all. Like, you get draw points, and that's it. But draw points almost don't even matter, because most of the time it's like, who cares about the draw points? Just play cards, you know what I mean? Like, cards will do everything for you. Like, there's a lot of good draw points, but cards is too strong. It doesn't matter. And that's all you get is stuff to junction. There's no equipment in that game. You get, like, weapons, but you make the weapons yourself by getting them from cards and stuff. So, who cares, right? You get nothing. There's no chests in that game, so you don't get ever, like, sometimes you'll get items from people, but you don't ever, like, there's nothing to, like, find anywhere. It's just the magic and stuff. And it's really just, like, a complete, like, inversion of that game, because this game, it's like, everywhere you go, it's like, there's chests, there's hidden things, there's characters you can talk to that might do stuff for you. It's crazy. Ugh. Next point, references to older Final Fantasy games and other games too, like, whatchamacallit? Yeah, like, this game is like a huge love letter to older Final Fantasy games. Like, there's so many little things, like, I've done a ton of, like, nudge nudge, wink wink, poke pokes, like, things like the statues in Alexandria that are like a reference to the Magus sisters and all that jazz. But there's so many little things, even just in, like, game mechanics and all that jazz. Like, it is actually crazy how much, like, we haven't even seen as much, but, like, even, like, the core plot of the game kind of references, like, the older Final Fantasy games. Like, it's kind of crazy. I'm trying to think of anything I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, there's even things to other games, like, whatchamacallit? That fountain that we looked at in Lindblom Castle, that's like, there's no place to put the coin. That's not a reference to a Final Fantasy game. That's a reference to Resident Evil 2, which is, of all things, like, what a thing to reference. Like, it's kind of crazy. Because, there's a point in 2 where Resident Evil 2, that happens. And it's like, what a thing to reference, you know what I mean? Like, I can't believe they bothered doing that. Ugh. I don't even know half the references to older games. Like, if you want to look up all the references to older Final Fantasy games, just go look at, like, the wiki or something, like, because that'll give you a much better overview of all the crazy crap. Next point, music. Oh, no, wait. No. FMVs. Yeah. So the FMVs in this game, really good, really top notch. But a thing I haven't even really brought up is, like, especially in the early ones, like the first couple ones during, like, Alexandria and stuff, there is so much detail during FMVs. Like, so many people just like the first one, like, you can look at, like, everyone's walking around and you can see everyone's doing something different. And, like, even things like, you'll see for, like, a half second, like, when the theater ship is crashing, you can see in the window, just barely, you can see Baku. I got interrupted yet again. Isn't it surprising that, you know, I've been sitting here for, like, an hour and a half with no interruptions. And then the minute I start recording, not even 10 minutes have passed, and I've been interrupted twice, because that's just my freaking luck. I digress. There's so much detail in the FMVs, and it happens so, you know, like, you know, snap fast. It's crazy how quick some of them will happen. Like, you'll see for just, like, a half second. Like, you'll see Bach, like I said, you'll see Bach in the window freaking out, and you'll see, like, in the like, especially one of the big cutscenes I swear I always end up seeing something new, is the one where Braun is shooting down the theater ship with the bomb and stuff, and the like, anchors and stuff, and you can see so many little things, like you can see Vivi roll into Steiner and knock him away, but you can also see, like, I didn't even notice this at any point, but somebody mentioned this in a comment on another video I was watching, and I was like, wow, that's actually a thing that happens. Like, when they first start flying away, you can just barely see that, like, Zidane's mooning Braun, right? He's, like, shaking his ass at her, which is hilarious. I've never noticed that, like, because there's so much to look at. Like, he's just been way in the back. You can just barely see it. It's crazy. Let's see. Next point. I don't have these numbered. I just have dashes. The music. Right. I want to talk about the music. Music. Holy crap, man. The music in this game. It's like, I've had some of the songs in this game stuck in my head my entire life. Like, even the ones you might not realize, like the regular battle theme in this game, like, honestly, like, everyone I ever see play this game, it's always like, you know what, the battle theme's like top notch. It's like one of the best ones in this series. It's my favorite in this series, definitely, personally, but, you know, I mean, you know, 10's pretty good too. I really like, whatchamacallit, I really like 5, actually, but, I mean, I digress, that's enough about, I'm talking about other games. I should be talking about the greatest game ever. And, you know, let's dial it in a little. Like, the music's great, and like, this game really has like a thing where it really loves leitmotifs. So like, pretty much anytime you ever hear a song in this game, like it is almost guaranteed at some point you'll hear a remix of it at some point. Like, the main theme of the game, I think, is called Melodies of Life, I believe is what it's called, and that's like the world map theme, and you'll hear it everywhere else too. Like all the gates have like that, you know, like that's one of my favorite songs is the South Gate, North. I don't even know what it's called, but like the gate theme, or like the area where we saw with Steiner, you know, the do 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 do, you know, that song. That's like a remix of the main theme of the game, and you hear it on the world map because the world map theme is kick-ass, like one of the best ones too. Such a good song. And you hear this all over the place. Like, we've already heard like how many variations of Steiner's theme. We've heard Dagger's theme is actually also a remix of the main theme of the game, which is kind of appropriate given that, you know, I'm not gonna say too much about that, but Dagger's you could argue that Dagger's basically the main character. Like, Vivi's Vivi's right behind her, but Dagger really is like the main character of the game. Even though you barely ever play as her, but like, it feels like everything revolves around her. Right, we've even heard like Quenna's theme has already been, you know, we've heard like the Q's Marsh, and then the actual like frog catching song, or like, you know, it's the same thing. We've heard different versions of Freya's theme, right? Because you've got Freya's theme, and then you've got the Burmecia theme, and we'll even hear other versions of that later too. I think even like, there's so many, like, every character gets like their own theme, and you'll hear several versions of it. Every area gets its own theme, and you'll hear several versions of that. It's crazy. Like, there's so many songs in the game, and there's all so good. Like, you could argue that if you're not a big fan of hearing so many different versions of the same song, then maybe you won't like it as much. Which, you know, that's fair enough. I mean, no one's gonna say that you're stupid. You know, that's your opinion. But it's the third time I've been interrupted. Imagine that. Yeah, but like, if you don't like leitmotifs, all the remixes, you know, that's fair enough. But like, I love that because it's like, it plays into like you hear, you know, like you hear Steiner's theme and you hear a different version of it, and it's like, it changes the way you feel. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's indescribable because it's like, music. I mean, this is kind of a sidetrack, but like, I think music is arguably like one of the most important things for like anything regarding like media, because like, I think people really underestimate how powerful music really is. Like, I would argue like past like how well you actually like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like you play a game like Donkey Kong Country or even Halo or something like that, and it's like the music is what makes it a turn from like a good game to like a legendary game, because it's like how many people know Halo for how incredible the music was, or, you know, like even things like, you know what I mean? Like, music always gets brought up in these things because music is like so important for your enjoyment of the game. How well like it burns itself into your brain. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm, you know, I'm rambling a little bit there, but I really believe in that. So, you know, just saying, you know. Let's see. Bullet point next is how good the intro to the game is. Yeah, like, how good is the intro to this game? Like, I feel like the intro to this game is phenomenal because it does such a good job of setting up all the characters without like it doesn't have to, there's no lulls. Like, it doesn't have to sit there and like be like, yeah, this is who this character is and this is what he does, you know, just like, it shows you who the characters are by just like letting them talk to people and letting you play as them, right? You get to play like in the span of like, you know, 10-15 minutes, you're playing as Zidane, Vivi, and Steiner all, and like doing things as them, and like you get that out of them, right? And that lets you figure out who they are by just seeing them talk to people and not have to like sit there and like learn about them through like exposition that's like boring, you know what I mean? Like you see them interact and that's all you need. Like that immediately tells you like that's you learn that, and like not only that, but like it tutorializes you really well because it shoves you into a bunch of fights that are basically just like here, let's just throw a bunch of stuff at you and you quickly learn how it works. Just like, you know, Vivi's the black mage, you know, Steiner's, you know, he's the guy he's the guy who's kind of got a stick in his ass. You know, you have all the thieves of Tantalus, they can all steal. You got Zidane. Right, Dagger's got the summoning magic and the white magic and all that stuff, and you see it all just by playing the game, just getting into the fights that happen during the intro to the game, right? And it even showed, you know, it sets up the villain, right, Braun, that we see a bunch of, which I guess that's just like in a whole nother thing, but like what we see from Braun in this game, like Braun gets set up as a villain so well because like once again, like it's not just like we're told like, oh, she's a dickhead or something. It's like we see her freaking do some ridiculous things. Like we see her talk about Garnet like she's not that important, and we see her, especially when the theater ship flies, right? They're firing the freaking anchors and shit, and like they almost hit Dagger at several points. The fire the bomb that explodes. It's like it's pretty obvious she doesn't really care about Dagger that much, and it's like. And then, you know, obviously we're seeing things like the war and stuff. It's like, it's so good. It's set up so well that it's just like, you know, Braun is she's exactly what you'd expect her to be. I already talked about where his character differences. Right. Yeah. So this game brings back a class system from like, I don't even know. I guess for the best example is actually 4, because I feel like in one, you basically pick the classes yourself, and same with 3. Even 5 is the same thing. 4 is like the one where it's like you have all the characters that have preset classes. That's like the closest one to this. And like it's really cool because like especially when you compare it to like the last 2 fights, 7 and 8, right? Those games, even 6, 7 and 8, where like they basically have barely any character differences, where the big one is just like in 7, the only real difference between characters that's really meaningful is their limit breaks. And for the most part, they're all basically just different ways of doing damage. Like, Red 13 has a couple cool ones, and Aerith has a bunch of cool ones, but then she dies, so you kind of lose that. And 8 has the limit breaks too, and that's kind of another thing too. Like, some of the ones are ridiculous, but like even 6 kind of has like a mix of class and non-class, because it has like you customize the characters with like magic into the espers and stuff, but they also have like one character specific like ability, right? Like Edgar gets his tools, or like Gao has all of it. Well, Gao's like completely different. 6 is weird like that, but that's probably for its benefit. But then like in this game, it's like they go back to the, I guess, like I said, the Final Fantasy IV, where every character just has a class, and that's how it goes. And like that even plays, like I didn't really mention, I guess this is kind of a point I'll bring in too. Like this plays into the story too, right? Characters doing things during cutscenes and like when we're just walking around and like doing events and all that jazz, and like it's playing into the thing, like right, like I already mentioned this I think, but like Freya's jumping around, right, because she's a dragoon, right? She's a dragon knight. She can jump around, right? Zidane's like pretty agile too, actually, because he's a thief, and he actually like that's literally his job. His job was to be a thief and like do shit like that, right? Vivi's a black mage, and like we see him literally like not only during cutscenes, but even just like in Ice Cave, we get treasure just by having Vivi break down walls with magic. And we haven't seen this yet, but I will say that Garnet's summoning magic does become a very big plot point. So, you know, spoilers there, but you know, all that jazz. We even get cool stuff like Vivi has and Steiner have a sword combo ability where they have sword magic, which is really cool. That's a reference because I think 5 has a sword, like a magic, like a sword magic class or something like that. I forget what it's called, but it's like you use magic on your sword, and that's basically exactly what 9 has. It's just they turned into a little combo ability. And we have Quenya, who Quenya is really cool too, because it's like Quenya, like the Qs are like basically like their whole culture revolves around like eating and like food and stuff, right? That's why they're like, we always see them being chefs, and like they're, we see Quina looking for frogs and stuff because that's like a big thing, and that plays into their like they learn magic through eating monsters. It's like, it's so cool that it's like such a good like integration into the story. And like even like a little thing, like one of the like Quina has a special blue magic called Frog Drop, which is based on how many frogs he's eaten, right? And that plays into the fact that you get it from a frog monster. It's like, that's so cool, right? Like it's such a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but like it's the small things that really make the world feel like it's a real thing. You know what I mean? Like, they could have just had Quina learn magic any other way, but the fact that they actually made it that Quina is eating monsters, and the fact that Quina gets a frog blue magic from eating a frog, you know what I mean? Like, I love the way that the game integrates the way that characters are into the story, and also into the gameplay, and also just into everything, basically, you know what I mean? Like, that's so cool. Like, I love that about this game. Oh yeah, mini game. That's a fun point to bring up. We've already played a bunch of mini games at this point. There's still more mini games in the future, and I think that's really interesting because, like, if you look at like Seven, for example, has a ton of cool mini games, and they're kind of put into the story. But Seven also has some ones that people don't like you have to do like CPR to Priscilla at some point in 7. And I think, what mini games does 8 even have? 8 has a bunch of weird ones, but like 9 has a bunch of them, and like they're pretty like hit or miss. But most of the time, like, people don't really care that they're hit or miss, because like even like I think like the most probably disliked ones generally are going to be Jump Rope and Tetramaster, the card game, and that's because they're very like Jump Rope, for example, like getting 1,000 in a row is insanely difficult, because like once you get to like 200, the game starts messing with the timing, and it's like you have to actually like react instead of just like, having a good rhythm. And then Tetramaster is because I think mainly because it's a little like because the game itself makes it like very mysterious, right? You don't really learn too much about how it works until pretty late. And then also the fact that like it's very random, right? Even if you know what you're doing, you can still sometimes lose with good cards just because you get unlucky. And that's that's what it is. I mean, I don't really care about that stuff, because I mean, the big thing is that Tetramaster and Jump Rope are both like 100% optional, right? Like, you have to, like, I'll say this, you have to play Tetramaster during the story once. Like, there's one story beat where you have to play a couple games, and that's it. And then Jump Rope is never mandatory, obviously, because how the hell are they gonna make that mandatory? But like, even then, it's like, the reason I don't care about it is because I feel like, well, I don't know. That's hard to say. Jump Rope, I don't really like the Jump Rope that much, but it's optional, so I don't, it's like, to me, it's like, the fact that's optional means who cares? It's like, whatever. Like, all you get for, hell, even all you get for doing 1,000 Jump Ropes is just a key item that just says, congratulations, you did it. Like, the fact that the Steam version made it, like, an achievement is the dumbest thing ever, because now everyone's gonna have to try to do it if they're achievement goers, and then that sucks. But Tetramaster is like, it is random at its core, because like, even if you know what you're doing, you have good cards, sometimes you'll still lose to like a starter card. And I think it's like that mainly because, like, if you look at like 8's card game, right? 8's card game is like basically unrandom, like it's 100% unrandom, because it is just like fourth time I've been interrupted. What was I talking about? 8's card game. Alright, 8's card game is like the opposite of 9's, because 9's is like, well, I guess because 8's doesn't have really any RNG at all, other than like a couple of the rules pick random cards for you. But like, once you have good cards in 8, it's basically impossible to lose, like, especially if you're not playing with like random card things. And like, I guess because of that, with 9, they wanted to make it so like, even when you have good cards, there's always a chance you can lose. And I mean, like, if you don't like that, you don't like that, you don't like losing because of RNG, that's completely reasonable. Like, but like, I never had a problem with this, just because like, it is true, because, well, first of all, once again, Tetramaster is almost entirely optional, and like, even when it's mandatory, you don't have to win. Like, the one story time you have to play it, you don't have to win. So No, that's that. Whatchamacallit? It's mainly, and like even then, like when you know how the game works and you have good cards, it's still pretty hard to lose, especially because the like basically like the whatchamacallit, like the I forget what it's called. The system where like when you defeat a card, and then any arrows on the card give you other cards that's touching. That system is there. I think that's like a big improvement because that basically means that whatchamacallit, like oh fuck, I have my stinking throat in my tongue in my throat. That means that cards with more arrows are not always better, which I mean, I guess technically speaking, in 8, that's not even a thing, because I think 8's just always 4 directions. Every card just has 4 attacking values on each side. But 9, it's like, instead of that, the card always has the same power, and instead you get the different arrows do different things for you. So, like, if you have a card with lots of arrows, right, it's easy to attack with, but it also means that losing that card can be extremely punishing. Whereas, if you have a card with only 1 or 2 arrows, all of a sudden, it's hard to attack with, but losing that card generally doesn't do anything to you. So it's like risk-reward sort of thing, which is really cool. Other mini games I'm trying to think of. Like, the sword fight mini game is awesome. Like, as hard as it is to get the perfect score, like, it's a really fun, just like little, like, Simon Says mini game. And like, I mean, it sucks if you can't do it, because like if you're doing the Excalibur 2 perfect game, you basically have to do it, because if you don't get the 10,000, like even the Moonstone is like I think you need that for the perfect game, but it's like that's just like a bonus basically. It's the 10,000 gil that you really need to get. Chocobo Hot and Cold is awesome, but we'll talk about that more later. So, and I think the thing with the mini games in this game is that I think the reason why they tend to be generally pretty well received is that for the most part they're very simple. Like compared to like 7, for example, where you have like the sub mini game, the snowboarding mini game, where you have all these things you have to think about. But it's like with a lot of the stuff like Chocobo Hot and Cold, it's like it's just press the button and then get closer, you know, and just try to find it. And so like they tend to be very simple. Like even jump rope, it's like you just press the button, you know. Like you have a bunch of timing to think about, but it's like it's just press one button. There's no like crazy like angling and stuff. Like probably the most complex mini game is Tetra Master, and even then, it's just like I think that might actually be partially why they add the RNG part. So it's not like you don't have to think about it too hard, because even if you have bad things, you can sometimes just get lucky, and sometimes you get unlucky. You know that sucks, but alright, that's about all I have to say about that. Let me segue into the next thing, which I kind of already talked about, which is that this game has really good tutorials. But I just want to double down on that. This game is really good at tutorializing you, because especially like in 7, for example, it's like whenever you get a tutorial in that game, it always feels like it's like a whole thing. Especially in 8, frick man, 8 has tutorials all the time, and it's always just like a slow ass menu, and it sucks. But in this game, like when, for example, when they tell you how to equip abilities, it's literally just, it's not even like done in the traditional tutorial way. It's just Blank is like talking to you like a real person almost, you know what I mean? Like he's just like, man, you're so dumb, this is how you do it, and he just does a quick little thing, just equip it in the menu, you know, like, and it's just like one little paragraph that's just like over in like a second that you can just read. And like you have the, you know, Teach Me Mogster thing, but like Teach Me Mogster is like, once again, it's like you don't have to do it. And I mean, you know, it's not like 7 and 8 forces the tutorials on you either, but it's like, even like I like that. I mean, I don't know how some people might feel about that. The fact that because of the Teaching Mogster, they basically give you a bunch of tutorials at once, but they're all like, I don't know. That's one thing I will say is not the best, because I feel like having all the tutorials at once can be like, this is what I hate about 10's Blitzball, is they give you all the Blitzball tutorials at once, and they don't even let you play the game when they give you the tutorials. So it's like you're sitting there like, wow, this is a lot to take in, and you don't even like get to apply it right away because you have to do all this other stuff, and then you finally get to play, and it's like, how the hell do I play? You know what I mean? Like, it's that part kind of sucks. And 9 kind of does that, but at least it's like you don't have to do it all at once, because like it's just mostly telling you about stuff that isn't really important, so you can just like ignore it and then just get the tutorials later. Because like, even though they give you a bunch of tutorials at once, it's like they still give it to you in batches, where it's like you have the 3 different sessions Whereas like you get the basic stuff, and then you get the more of the advanced stuff, and then you get the synthesis stuff. And then also later, when you end up, if you go visit one of the marshes, right, the Mogster will be chilling in there, which is nice. So you can do it all at once if you want to, but you can like kind of like segment it out also, which is nice. Like that's kind of why I said the tutorial, like that tutorial is like hit or miss whether you like it or not. But like I think the other tutorials, like they don't even really have to tutorialize you on stealing, because it's like they give you 4 thieves at the start, and immediately it's just like, all right, this is how it works. You know what I mean? And they tell you about how important equipment is, like the same thing with blank, which is really nice. I think that's the 5th time I interrupted. Freaking Christ on a cracker. What was I? Right. Animations and mannerisms. So, the animations in this game, top notch, absolutely. Like, they're like, there's a lot of animations that I feel like they do such a good job of character, like it's part of like the personality and characterization of characters, right? Like Steiner's always like jumping up and down or shaking his fists. Zidane tends to be like he's very like his animations tend to be kind of aloof, but also like you get stuff like this little action pose. Vivi's always like shaking his hat or like constantly like flittering his fingers, like stuff like that. It's like that really adds, I feel like, I mean, I shouldn't even say I feel like that just straight up, it does add so well to the characterization. And there's a lot of animations in this game I want to point out, like for like in battle, just as an example, right? There's an animation for like, obviously there's their idle pose, but like they'll transition into a, like that's a big thing too, like the animations transition into each other really well, right? So like Zidane's chilling, and then you press the attack, and he transitions into a different animation where he's like ready to attack. And like even like when they're attacking, right, and then when they're in the attack pose, the fight ends, then they transition back into an idle pose, which is like such a small thing, but it's a cool thing. Like they have a pose for defending, they have a pose for different type, like they'll generally have multiple different animations for spells, right? Like hell, like even like Zidane, for example, has 2 different sets of animations for whether he's got his daggers or his thief sword. It's like it's so cool that they, like, cause like, just an example, like I'm trying to think, did any other Final Fantasy game before this have like different animations for different weapons? Like you've got one, like none of the sprite ones really, I mean the sprite ones technically do, but not in the same way. You've got 7, I guess Barret, there you go, Barret does, because he has the gun arm and then he can punch stuff. Is Barret the only character in 7 that's like that? I'm trying to think. It does, and even then it doesn't really affect it. All it affects is his attack command, basically. So like instead of shooting, I guess that's not true, because he also has different, like he can shoot. Oh, Vincent does too, because Vincent gets different kinds of guns. It's I guess it's all the gun characters, and all the gun characters get different guns, and they went to the trouble of actually like having different animations for that, which is, that's cool, but funny I transitioned to that. So, and I really like that when they go to that attention. Like, I'm not trying to badmouth 7. I really like 7, mind you. So, like, don't take this as me being like, oh man, 7 sucked, 9's the best. Like, I'm just comparing it to a reasonable comparison to another Final Fantasy game that's on the PlayStation. And, like, there's always going to be, like, at the end of the day, it's like, 7 was made, way before 9. 9's, like, one of the last games on the PlayStation. Right? So, of course, it's going to be better. Like, they've gotten used to making games. But I digress. The animations, like, it's a big thing. Like, everything has an animation. Like, you get characters that even have different animations. Different things. Like, I think, whatchamacallit? Like, Steiner, we haven't even seen it yet, but he has, like... Actually, I guess that's true. Steiner's a weird case, because he actually has a magic casting animation, but we just don't see that. Because, he never has magic to cast. Like, a lot of characters have that. It's, like, a weird thing. But, that's neither here nor there. That's, like, a whole nother topic. And the last thing I really have to talk about in regards to that, just, like, things I've thought up. Dagger's name. So, I'm kind of doubling down on this. Like, it's surprising to me, honestly. It really is how many people don't like her name being Dagger. Like, they always try to change, they change it to something else, and like, obviously I don't really care about that. Like, you've always been able to name every Final Fantasy character and like all the non-talking ones. I think the first one to not have character naming actually was it 10? Was it actually 10? Could you name every playable character up until 10? Because I'm trying to think. 9's kind of a weird one because Garnet is always Garnet, but you can just change her alias to something else, her secret name basically, her secret identity or whatever. So that's kind of like a cheatsy one. So you technically can't even really rename her because people will still call her Princess or Garnet, right? But I brought this. I wanted to bring this up because it's like people hate that she just names herself after a dagger, and it's like, have you ever heard people's names in English? Like, so many names in English are literally just named after like objects. Like, for example, Penny, Crane, Daisy, Brooklyn, Penny, Coco, Sage. You know, or you know all the different types of gemstones, like Garnet. Or you just need named after objects, and it just sounds good. And like I don't know. Like, to me, it's like there's so many names that are just like bare bones that, and like everything at its core is like either you're named after something or you're not named after something. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like it feels stupid to me to get up in arms, like either because you don't like that it's named after a dagger, or you just think the name Dagger sounds dumb. It's like there's lots of dumb sounding names. Like, it's so stupid to complain about that. Like, of all the things, I feel like, to get up in arms about, this is, like, one of the most common ones. And it's like, of all the things, you know what I mean? Like, what a weird thing to get hung up on. Oh, yeah, here's a big thing. This is, like, more related to, like, plot stuff. Prominence of magic in this game. Magic is extremely prominent in this game. And I feel like a lot of people don't even really think about that, but it's like just for example, like even just ignoring cutscenes is battles, right? Almost every single monster we've seen up until this point, including bosses, has had some sort of magic spell they can cast. Like the only one I can even think of off the top of my head is Moose can't cast magic; they can just throw a rock at you. But like, it's like just an example, or like I guess Goblin Punch from the goblins, but it's like, or the Fangs. Like some of the early stuff can't, but it's like. Actually, I guess nothing in Evil Forest really could, up until Plant Brain and the Plant Spires. Then all of a sudden they're using Thunder. Then you get into the world map, the Pythons are using Thunder. You've got in the Ice Cave, all the monsters can cast Blizzard. Once you get to like the top of the mist, you found the spiders that can cast Fire. All the Black Waltzes, and then finally we get to Lindblum, and now it's like you got Axe Baits casting Thundara. You've got the ladybugs casting fire, all these things casting things, like the freaking Serpians casting shell and cure on themselves, which I didn't even know they could do, which, fun thing there. You get Q's March, they're casting Blizzard and water spells, or Aqua Breath, which Goblin Punch is blue magic, spoilers, so that's kind of still counts. You get inside the thing, you've got the freaking Lamia casting all these spells on herself that are white magic. Like, it's so much. Like, almost every monster can cast magic of some kind. And, like, once again, I'm gonna hark back to Final Fantasy VII. In 7, the number of monsters that actually cast legitimate, like, magic spells is, like, so small. Like, you'll get some enemy skills here and there, but it's like, just an example, how many monsters can cast Cure on themselves? Like, it's like, I think there's, like, one per, like, Cure spell. Like, there's one monster that casts Cure, one that's Cure 2, and one that's Cure 3. And it's like, it's so few. Or like even just like offensive spells. Like, how many monsters can cast, like any of like the elemental stuff, like fire, it's like they're there, but they're so like few and far between. It's like, I think 8 kind of pumps us up a bit, but that's kind of inevitable because everyone can cast magic in that game. So of course, that's a thing. But I feel like it's interesting in 9 because, like, even though only, like, Vivi can cast black magic, only Garnet can cast white magic, but you see, like, all the monsters can cast different types of magic, so it's like such a common thing, And I think that's just really cool, that, like, it feels like it makes sense, because I feel like, once again, that's kind of harkening back to the original game, where, like, you can potentially have a whole party of mages, and you see magic here and there, and like it's like magic's like almost like a core identity, like the different like types of like white, black, red, blue, and all that jazz types of magic. It's like a core identity of Final Fantasy. So of course it makes sense they really made use of that in 9. Right. This is like basically my last topic, and this is an actual story thing I wanted to talk about that I kind of forgot to bring up when it happened because I was like kind of just going along with it. But this is like one of the first things I really get to talk about in depth, and it's not gonna be that long, but it's like, and it's talking about the scene where Zidane's hanging out in the Tanta's hideout, and the kids come talk to him. And I really wanted to talk about this because I kind of forgot to back then, but this is like a really interesting scene to me because it's like our first like scene that you can really analyze, and that is like, well, I guess you can even analyze it without having like like future knowledge, but it's like it's how up until this point, right? Every time Zyner's talking to Garnet, he tends to be he's either like trying to help her or he's flirting with her or whatnot. And he's really like it really feels like he's into her, right? And like he talk like even when he's talking to other people, like when he talks about Blank, right? He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you a cutie pie," all that jazz. And it's like it really feels like he's like being super flirtatious. He's the ladies' man, all that jazz. But then the kids come into the Tanta's hideout and start talking to him, right? And they start being like, "Oh, I bet she misses you," and all that jazz. And instead of being like, "Oh yeah," and instead of agreeing with them, Zidane's like, well, she's a princess and I'm me, like all of a sudden out of nowhere, all of a sudden he's like, it's not gonna work out, right? And it's like, that's such an interesting scene to me because it's like he keeps this facade up in front of everyone because that's kind of like part of like he's part of Tantalus, right? They're like a bunch of actors and stuff, but in front of the kids, I guess he just doesn't feel a need to act in front of them because he's alone just with the kids, so he's not gonna lie to them. He doesn't need to. So he basically reveals how he actually feels about Garnet, which is that he does not legitimately think that the relationship with her would work out, which is really interesting to me because that's our first like look into who Zidane really is. That even though it's easy to think he's just how he's been acting, that's not really who he is, and that he's like, I mean, even like with the scene where he tells Garnet not to come with them to Burmecia. It's like this is like when we really start getting to see that Zidane isn't just Mr. Ladies Man that's just like, haha, I'm gonna hang out with Garnet and all that jazz. And I think that's really interesting. It's like our first big scene. Anyways, that's pretty much it actually. All I'll say from here on is that I've actually swapped over to a new emulator for Disc 2 and onward. I'm going to be probably sticking with it. I swapped from EPSXE to RetroArch, and there's a lot of reasons why. I heard good things about RetroArch, and so far from what I've all my footage for this episode is going to be recorded with RetroArch, and so far I'm very happily surprised that it is definitely living up to expectations, which is that it seems to be just better than PSX in pretty much every way, other than like a couple little nitpicky things I have, but like that's other things more than make up for that. Like in general, it's just way more accurate than EPSXE. Not to mention that, as I was finding out, EPSXE seems to have problems running on Windows 10. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I've been getting like big lag spikes with it, and like I can't seem to even without recording. I couldn't like get anything out of it without like it would stutter a bunch just recording like normal stuff, and it was really annoying. And also a big thing is that the sound engine seems to be way better with RetroArch. Like I'll put this will be at the end of the video, but like you can really tell with a couple of spells, like generally any sound effect that's like got a lot of like distortion and like is high pitched and has a lot of like pitch shifting, like trance, blizzard, and even like the mimic snapping and all that jazz, like that stuff sounds actually like accurate on RetroArch, whereas on PSXE it sounded, not only did it sound bad in comparison, but it was inconsistent, really inconsistent for some reason. It would sound different depending on just like random things, and I'm glad that with RetroArch that's fixed. And I'm going to post a clip right after this that it shows me fighting a mimic, so you can actually hear it snapping. I use Blizzard on it, so you can hear the Blizzard spell sound proper, both in its single target and its multi-target, because even though the multi-target Blizzard is the same animation, it actually sounds different, which is cool. And also Trance sounds better, too. So yeah. Other than that, that's about it. That's all I had to say. I've been talking for almost an hour now. My mouth is really dry. So yeah, that's it for this part. I'll see you guys later.